Hi everyone. For today's lesson with poetry, we're going to do something a little less intensive, a little more playful, where we are going to practice writing our own poems. And we're going to keep this as pretty simple as we can for right now, where we're going to focus on the literary device of imagery and do some imagery or sensory poems. And ultimately, you're going to do two of them. So what happens is we have a little bit of a brainstorm that is on this page, and then on the second page is when you'll actually write your poem out. And as you can see, it's not going to be a very long poem, only a total of 6 lines long. So it is important to recognize that you are going to be doing both poems. So you're going to do poem number 1 and then poem number 2 as well, with a little bit of the brainstorming that is going on here on the first page. So you have your own copy of this document, but we're going to be doing everything. So you're going to be responsible for a brainstorm for your first poem, a brainstorm for your second poem, and then we'll be taking a look here at a copy of our first poem and then a copy of our second poem. So I'm going to show you how to do one of these poems. You might have already done one kind of before in another class or with another activity, but I'll show you how to do one, and then you'll be able to do the two on your own. The one that I do, we end up choosing a topic that most of us, maybe not all, but most of us can certainly relate to, and that is going to be dealing with the topic of Kennywood. And so you have the ability to choose whatever you want. So you can think about a specific location, a place. You can think also about an event that could happen that might not be place specific. So here, just kind of go over a couple little ideas as to what you could look at. You could be thinking of specific locations. So when it comes to locations, I obviously mentioned Kennywood. You could think about home. You could think about school, which normally people do not really want to write about, but maybe in today's circumstances that might be something that you'd be a little bit more interested in. Also, there could be a place wherever you have a job, if you have an employment. Could be a relative's house, maybe grandma's house is a place that you think of. Also could be vacations that you go on, whether it's been a vacation that you've only done once, maybe you have a traditional family vacation that you do, maybe there's a place that you've never been to but you've always kind of thought about and you want to go to. You also could choose, as I said, instead of a location, there could be a specific type of event that you want to look at. So holidays, can be a point of inspiration, or it could be birthdays. For some people, it could end up being sporting events. And, again, with today's circumstances where, sporting events are simply not happening, there might be something that you kind of associate with spring, summer, or fall that you would want to write about that there could be concern that it may not happen. So these are just potential ideas. By no means are you restricted to these. It is entirely up to you. So what you are going to write about is solely something that you would be interested in. And remember, you're going to be coming up with 2 possibilities. So make sure you do decide which 2 would be events, locations. It even could be people in some ways that you might want to consider writing about. All right? And again, this is just for the brainstorm to kind of get started. If you decide that it's not working out so well, you can certainly go with something else. So once you think of a specific location, as I said, I've done Kennywood, then you narrow down to these senses. So, we think of the 5 senses, and we think of senses with imagery. I think sight is the one that we initially focus on the most, but we're also going to be taking a look at what you see, what you hear, what you smell, what you taste, and what you feel with all of these locations. And so that's where locations and events really kind of work the best, because you can kind of have senses that are synonymous with those things. So I'm going to do a different color for each one just to kind of make it a little bit easier. So things that you are used to seeing at Kennywood. And I think it's best to try to go abstract, or at least kind of general rather than specific things. So I might not say that, you see roller coasters and whatnot, but, something like flashing lights. You could also do something, where you see people smiling. So you see smiles. You see at Kennywood Maybe there could be some specific rides that you want to take a look at. You could see arms waving, as you're going on the Jackrabbit or something along those lines. So we're coming up with hopefully at least 3 or 4 potential ideas that are coming to mind. So what are things that you associate the sights, the sea with Kennywood? Flashing lights, smiles, arm waving. It might be the large yellow arrow, as you're going on the highway and you're getting closer to Kennywood and you start to see signs for it. All right, now, what are things that you hear at Kennywood? And obviously we want to try to not kind of overlap with our same examples over and over again. So things that you hear at Kennywood, could be screams, could be people laughing. It might be, you might kind of hear the wind, the breeze as you're going quickly on a ride. You might hear, the games taking place, whether it be the bells that are going on of a winner or whatnot. It might also kind of be, you hear, for roller coasters or whatnot, like the click of the chain that is pulling the roller coaster up. So, chain, click, I don't want to say I simply hear a ride, but I'm trying to come up with something specific. Now, smells. What are things that you smell when it comes to Kennywood? I think for a lot of people, even though taste is one that's going to be coming up, you start to kind of think about a little bit of food items. So it might be potato patch fries. Some people would say that when you're there, you smell summer. I smell the grease, or oil that are on the rides that keep it lubricated to be moving. Some people would say that depending what part of the day it is, you start to smell a little bit of the body odor that could be happening. We used to have the log jammer. There might be kind of that chlorine smell. You might still kind of get that by the Raging Rapids a little bit. Anything else so far as smell? So we got potato patch fries, summer, which is a little bit abstract, that grease, that oil, the body odor. One of the things that I just kind of thought about, and you can certainly kind of slide back and forth, when it also comes to objects that I see, one of the things that comes to mind for me is gum or hair ties. And I'm thinking of when you're standing in line for Phantom's Revenge. There is the rooftop. I think of like a little maintenance shed or whatnot, and you see, gum or hair ties that's kind of fallen off from people or coming out of their mouth while they are going on the roller coaster. So, those could be things that you just kind of come to mind when you're thinking about specific places within Kennywood. All right, so now for taste, and again, you could go with some kind of specific food that you certainly enjoy when you're at Kennywood. Already mentioned potato patch fries, so I'm going to try to pick something a little bit different from that. I know for my kids, they always think of Kennywood as where they can get Dippin' Dots. So that might be a specific type of food. Taste. If your mouth's open when you're going on the ride, you might taste some bugs. As when you're a little kid and you get a little bit older and your parents or whomever let you kind of roam the park on your own for a little bit, it might be your first taste of freedom or independence. And again, this is obviously being a little abstract here. Could be anytime I go to Kennywood, or it seems like almost any time, it always rains. So, when you're standing in line, there might be kind of a taste of rain that could be happening. And then feel, okay? And obviously feel can be something that you literally feel, and it could be certainly a little bit of abstract again. So, maybe you feel happiness or joy. Maybe you feel tired and sweaty when the day is over. Some might say that you feel like a kid, again. Or you could feel excitement. Okay? And obviously the nice thing about these are different people can feel different things. So once I have my list, and for each one, okay, so for both poems that I'm doing, or both brainstorms, for what I see, hear, smell, taste, feel, for each one, we want to have at least 3 examples. Okay, so you're going to have 3 examples all across the board here for whichever one you're going to do. And then ultimately you decide, all right, from this list that I have, which are the ones that I want to use when it comes to my poem. So things that I see, I'm going to go, I see smiles, and I'm going to go hair ties, just to be a little different. Things that I hear laughing, and I hear the wind. Smell, potato patch fries, summer. Taste, bugs, and I'll say freedom. And then things that I feel, I'm going to go, I feel excitement and I feel like a kid. And one thing that I think I might even kind of do there is I'm going to emphasize that I'm no longer a kid, so I feel like a kid again. All right? So, now, when it comes to my actual poem, I'm going to go down to my next page, and here I'm just going to keep everything now in the same color. I'm going to go down to my next page, and now I'll take a look at putting my poem together. So, when we said, okay, what do we see? Well, we end up seeing smiles and hair ties. So, on my first line, I'm not going what I see, I'm not writing I see, I'm just going to write smiles, comma, hair ties. I think my writing has deteriorated here as we keep going with the lesson. All right, so what do I see? Smiles, hair ties. Now, I'm going to go into what do I hear? I hear laughing and the wind. So, laughing, and I'll put the wind. Now, I'm going to be going to what do I smell? Potato patch fries, summer. And then I believe for what we taste went with bugs and freedom. What do I feel? I feel excitement and I feel like a kid again. So like a kid again. And then what is the last thing I'm going to write? I'm going to write what I am or where I am. And so that is going to be Kennywood. Okay. And when it comes to the title of the poem, I'll also make that Kennywood. If you want to make the title something else, you certainly can. If you want to be a little bit more creative, for today's purposes, I'm just going to go with Kennywood. So you have the ability to certainly fill this out in Notability if you want to write it out. If you decide that you would prefer to type out your examples, that's perfectly fine. And type out your poems, I have no problem with that. The big thing is, though, that number one, you're going to be doing 2 poems, and you're going to be doing 2 brainstorms, and I want you to have at least 3 examples for what you would do for see, hear, smell, taste, and feel, or touch. So I don't want you to come up with 2 examples and just automatically use those for your poem, but I want you to have at least 3. However, when it comes to completing your poem, you're only worried about choosing 2 from each option. Oops, excuse me. So you only have to have 2 of each sense, and then do make sure that your last line, you end with whatever your topic, your object, your event is going to be. So in this case, I was taking a look at Kennywood. All right. So 2 brainstorms, 2 poems. You're just going to submit that for today, and that's really the only assignment that you need to do. We're doing a little bit of a break from our TP cast, but we'll be picking up with another TP cast tomorrow. All right. Hope everyone's having a good one, and I'll talk to you later. Hope you enjoy coming up with some imagery sensory poems.